Is J.D. Davison Boston's secret weapon for a future roster overhaul? The Boston Celtics didn't just sign a player, they sent a message. A powerful, symbolic move that echoes far beyond the stat sheet. When they converted J.D. Davison's two-way contract into a standard two-the-year deal, they weren't just rewarding G League excellence. They were staking a claim on their future. This wasn't a gesture, it was a statement of intent. Davison, a name barely whispered in most national discussions, is now one of the most intriguing roster moves Boston has made all season, not because of what he is, but because of what this move means. In a season where every dollar counts and tax restrictions loom like storm clouds over contender rosters, investing in a developmental piece rather than a veteran stopgap is a sharp pivot, and it's one that hints at internal recalibration. A team quietly preparing for inevitable changes that could shake the Celtics' core in the near future. Why now? What does this mean for Boston's bigger picture? Joe Mazzulla's remarks weren't casual, they were calculated. Speaking just hours after the move, Mazzulla described Davison's journey with words like validation, leadership, and maturity. But behind the coach speak, the subtext is loud. Davison didn't just improve, he survived. 3 years buried in the G League system, surrounded by obscurity, grinding through a developmental program that chews up and spits out most late-round picks. But Davison broke through, not just by dropping numbers. 25.6 points, 7.7 assists per game, G League MVP, but by forcing the franchise's hand. He outgrew Maine, he broke the franchise scoring record, he outlived the two-way limits, and Boston had to move. The real twist. His new deal includes a team option for the second year, a tactical hedge that gives Boston total control, a low-risk, high-upside gamble on a player who's already given more than what the franchise has asked. The front office didn't blink. They pulled the trigger. Is this a depth move or a strategic power play? Let's not sugarcoat it. Davison isn't cracking the top rotation in the playoffs. Not this year. Not with the Celtics locked and loaded for a championship run. But this move isn't about April. It's about August. It's about July 1st, when contracts expire, when the new CBA hits harder, and when teams across the league will be forced to gut depth and recalibrate around bloated superstar salaries. J.D. Davison isn't just a cheap bench piece. He's a strategic insurance policy, a controllable, cap-friendly asset with upward mobility. And the Celtics didn't need to do this now. They chose to. In the middle of a playoff push, Boston just carved out a roster spot. Not for a veteran, not for a ring chaser, but for a developmental guard who's done nothing but grind. That's not just bold, it's surgical. It signals a franchise thinking 3 moves ahead, even as the current window remains wide open. Mazzulla's message: loyalty or leverage? Let's be clear, Mazzulla's praise wasn't fluff, it was targeted. When he said Davison earned this, it wasn't just about performance, it was about culture. The Celtics are quietly reshaping what their internal identity looks like. Long gone are the days when Boston was just a star-chasing, trade-happy machine. Now, they're rewarding patience. They're showcasing loyalty, but more importantly, they're keeping their options wide open. With Davison, they didn't just add a player, they added flexibility. If he develops into a rotation player, it's a home run. If he doesn't, they've risked next to nothing. And if the CBA's iron grip forces Boston into making brutal decisions this offseason, Davison's presence, hungry, proven, and dirt cheap, becomes a trump card. This isn't just basketball, it's chess. And the Celtics are already 3 moves ahead. Clear favorite. To repeat, Insider's declaration exposes high-stakes gamble behind Celtics' title defense in an NBA season where parity reigns and the margin for error is razor-thin. ESPN's Tim Bontemps didn't just share an opinion. He lit a match, declaring the Boston Celtics as clear favorites to defend their title isn't just a prediction, it's a pressure-packed warning. This isn't about casual optimism or shallow hype. It's a brutal spotlight on a team that's skating on a glass floor. Yes, Boston boasts a powerhouse core, but there's a darker reality lurking beneath the surface. The issue: fragility, not of mentality, but of muscle, ligaments, and knees. Kristaps Porzingis, the unicorn with a history that reads more like a surgeon's calendar than a stat sheet, has missed more games than he's played this season. Jrue Holiday, another vital cog, has been bouncing in and out of the lineup like a malfunctioning cog in a high-speed machine. And let's not ignore the elephant in the locker room. Al Horford is pushing 39. Experience is gold, but even gold cracks under pressure when you've logged as many miles as Horford. Is health the real championship opponent for Boston? Forget Milwaukee, forget Philly. The real battle the Celtics are facing doesn't come dressed in another team's jersey. It wears a hospital gown. If Boston stays healthy, sure, they're terrifying, but that if looms larger than any. Eastern Conference contender, Boston's top 8 rotation players are championship grade. No argument. But relying on a nearly perfect health run, that's not a strategy. That's rolling loaded dice and praying the house doesn't catch you. The haunting memory of Porzingis missing almost all of last year's playoff run due to injuries isn't some minor footnote, it's a cautionary tale. Jrue Holiday's availability has been a question mark. Tatum and Brown have shouldered enormous workloads, and any tweak, sprain, or fatigue-based setback could flip this narrative upside down. Boston may be a clear favorite, but they're also a twisted ankle away from the storyline collapsing like a bad souffle. No team with this many lingering medical caveats should be comfortably labeled as dominant. The curse of the repeat. Can Boston break a 60-year drought? Here's a brutal stat that ESPN's Zach Cram slapped Celtics Nation with. No Boston team has repeated as NBA champions since 1963. Read that again. That's 6 decades of postseason heartbreak, rebuilds, almosts, and collapses. This isn't just a title defense, it's an exorcism. Only 4 franchises have gone back-to-back in the 21st century. The Lakers, twice, the Heat, and the Warriors. Every one of those dynasties had something Boston desperately needs to maintain. Durable, star power. And while Boston has the offensive firepower and defensive versatility to bully any team on paper, dynasties aren't built in spreadsheets. They're built in the trenches of June, under the relentless grind of 7-game wars. And no matter how dominant your regular season was, and yes, Boston was elite, everything resets come playoff time. The ghosts of the past, the spotlight of expectations, and the ticking clock of aging veterans don't care about seeding or odds. They want blood. Is Jayson Tatum redefining what it means to be a Celtics legend? Just days before stepping into the crucible of the NBA playoffs, the Boston Celtics dropped a bombshell of historic proportions, one that rewrites the narrative surrounding their franchise centerpiece, Jayson Tatum. In a franchise drenched in legacy and stained with banners, Tatum has now accomplished something that hadn't been seen in over 3 decades. He became the first Celtic since Larry freaking Bird to lead the team in points, rebounds, assists, and steals multiple times across a season. And this isn't just about a statistical flex. This is the type of all-around dominance that cements legacies, especially on a team where expectations aren't just high, they're suffocating. Tatum's milestone doesn't just whisper his name alongside legends, it screams it into the history books with authority, at the doorstep of a playoff campaign that could finally silence every last doubter. If you still think this guy isn't that guy, you're either in denial or you're not paying attention. Has the NBA been underestimating Jayson Tatum's greatness all along? This announcement doesn't exist in a vacuum. It detonates in a league that has repeatedly overlooked Tatum's consistency and leadership. While other stars dominate headlines with off-court antics or flash-in-the-pan performances, Tatum has carried the weight of a championship contender with robotic efficiency and cold-blooded reliability. He's not just a scorer. He's the engine, the glue, the metronome of the Boston Celtics, averaging 26.8 points, 8.7 rebounds, 6 assists, and over a steal per game, all while playing 36-plus minutes a night. This isn't just production, this is sustained warfare. While critics nitpick his body language or question his killer instinct, Tatum has been quietly building a resume that no modern Celtic can touch. And as the playoffs loom, with legacies on the line, the timing of this historic stat drop feels less like a coincidence and more like a warning shot. Why isn't the league giving Jayson Tatum the MVP caliber recognition he deserves? Let's be brutally honest. If these numbers belonged to someone in a Lakers jersey or were backed by the hype machine of a big-market media darling, the MVP narrative would be laser-focused on them. Instead, Tatum continues to operate under an infuriating shadow of selective amnesia, praised when convenient, ignored when brilliant. 6 consecutive All-Star nods, 4 straight All-NBA selections and counting, a Rookie of the Year, a Finals appearance, a championship. Yet somehow, he's still treated like he's auditioning. There's no other player in the league who can claim this level of production and leadership without the fanfare. So when the Celtics posted that jaw-dropping graphic comparing Tatum to Larry Bird, it wasn't just a celebration. It was a middle finger to the narratives that keep trying to diminish what he's doing right now, in real time. With Boston securing the 2nd seed and riding into the playoffs on a 61-win campaign, the stakes couldn't be higher, and neither could Tatum's momentum. He's entering the postseason not just as a star, but as a storm. Alongside Derek White and Peyton Pritchard, he helped break the Celtics' all-time record for combined three-pointers in a season. That trio has turned Boston's perimeter attack into a weapon of mass destruction, and Tatum is at the center of it all, dictating the tempo and slicing defenses with terrifying precision. Add in his defense, his rebounding, his maturity, and his uncanny ability to elevate in clutch moments, and we're looking at a player with no glaring weakness.